In class, our best tools for getting great behavior from our students include things like establishing great relationships with them, supporting their intrinsic motivation, establishing clear rules and routines, and of course, building great lessons for them. But sometimes we need a little something extra to really guide our students and encourage them to behave the best that they can. And that's where behavior management systems come in. In this video, I'm going to share with you my favorite system for managing classes of preschool students who are learning English as a foreign language, and that's the marble jar. It's a super simple, easy, and quick system to use that works great for a lot of classes. So if you're interested in getting better behavior from your students in your classes, keep watching. Sometimes our students in class need a little visual reminder to show them how well they're doing in class and to keep them on track. This is a behavior management system. It's just a visual system that shows our students how well they're doing in the lesson. And it can be really helpful for them in getting them to behave a lot better. Beyond that, it's also really helpful for us as teachers because it's a quick reminder to us about how much feedback we've been giving to our students in class. Because if we look over at it and see that, oops, we haven't used it very much, then that's a quick reminder that we need to maybe increase the amount of feedback that we're giving to our students to really help them behave their best in class. Now, there are a lot of options out there for managing your students in class, but my favorite for preschool classes is the marble jar. This is a whole class system where all of the students rise together or sink together as a class. It's not an individual system. Personally, I find that whole class systems like this work really nicely for me because I find individual systems can become really quite negative. Because when some students see that they're not getting as many stars, for example in the star chart, then they can get really discouraged. And I see one thing that happens with a lot of teachers is they give a lot of stars to the best students in class, the star students. But those are the students who need the least encouragement in class because they're already doing well. And the star system ignores students who are more average or not outstanding. Those are the students who need the most encouragement. So I find the star chart actually incentivizes the wrong students in class. I also find that individual systems take a lot of time to manage, especially if you have 12 or 20 or even more students in class. You can waste a lot of time drawing stars or checks or doing all sorts of things for each individual student. So when I use a whole class system, it's very quick just to use it and then move on. And everyone, again, is in it together, so nobody feels left out. So here's how the marble jar system works. First, at the beginning of each course and even at the start of each lesson, I explain to my students how the marble jar system works because it can take them a little bit of time to understand how it actually functions. Now, my explanation goes something like this. All right, students, in my class, we have a marble jar. And when you follow the rules and I am happy, then I can color in a marble. When we have all the marbles, then I can give you stickers. So let's count. How many marbles do we need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 6 marbles. And today, let's use the color red. Then I refer back to my marble jar throughout the rest of the lesson. I usually do this after every activity or lesson stage, which works out to about once every 5 to 7 minutes on average. And the way that I structure my marble jars is that it usually takes one lesson to complete one marble jar, or it takes a whole week to complete one marble jar. So if I see my students 2 or 3 times a week, I might have a marble jar with 12 or 15 marbles in it. That's about a good amount of time because if it takes longer, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks to complete a marble jar, it just becomes kind of meaningless to the students and it's not very motivating. But if they can get a reward at the end of each lesson or at the end of each week, then it's really exciting and encouraging for the students. Once the jar is full, which in my classes is really common, then I make sure at the end of the lesson to give each of the students a small reward. In many of my classes, all of the students get a small sticker that they really like. But in other classes, they get a stamp in their books, high fives, or even we sing a super silly song that all of the students enjoy. Whatever it is, I've made sure to tell my students that they can expect that reward at the beginning of the class. And once a marble jar is full, in the next lesson, we just start a new marble jar. Now, it's also really important to note that if your students didn't fill up a marble jar, or they didn't get as many marbles as expected, then it's important to tell them how they behaved and why they didn't fill up their marble jars and why they're not getting their reward. That way they know what they can do better in the future. Now, I like to use paper copies of my marble jar system because I like to let the students choose the crayon color for the day. But a lot of teachers that I know laminate their marble jars and then use dry erase markers on them, whichever way works for you. And if you're looking for a free download of my marble jar systems, then you can find free versions on my website at starteachertraining.com. Finally, there are a couple critical things that you really want to keep in mind so that your marble jar is as effective as possible. The first of these is that when you're giving your students a marble, you really need to have their attention and you need to be clear. It's really important that you have your students' attention as you're giving them this marble, because if you don't, then it's like it didn't even happen. It's not going to register with them that they did well. So make sure that you have all of your students' attention, otherwise it doesn't count. Also, be clear and tell them what they actually did well. That way they'll know what they need to do again in the future to continue making you happy. If you just tell your students, "Good job," or "Great," that doesn't really communicate a lot to your students, and it's not making it clear what they can do again in the future. But if you tell your students, for example, "Wow, students, I'm really happy. I saw many students playing the game and taking turns nicely. That's great." Then your students are going to understand that you really value those actions and that they can do that again in the future to earn more marbles and make you happy. Likewise, if your students didn't meet your expectations and you're not going to give them a marble, that's okay. Just make sure to calmly explain to them in a clear way that they're not going to get a marble, and what they did, how it made you feel, and what they should do instead in the future so that they can get more marbles. So, for example, "Students, I can't give you a marble because I saw many students who were not sitting down and you didn't keep your hands to yourself. So I am sad. Remember, students, sit nicely and keep your hands to yourself. Put your hands in your lap." Second, remember the 90% rule. That is, if the vast majority of your class is behaving well, then give everyone a marble. If you have one or two students who are misbehaving, don't let that prevent everyone else from getting a marble, because that's going to give those misbehaving students way too much power and control, and they might abuse it. So if you see almost all of your students are behaving nicely, give them a marble. But if you've got one or two students who are misbehaving, make a note of it and then try to find some time to talk with them on the side or figure out what's causing their misbehavior. That way you can make some changes to help those students on the side without ruining things for the rest of the class. So that's my marble jar behavior management system for preschool EFL students. If you liked it, check out the description box below so you can download your own free copies. And if you're looking for more tips and tricks on how to teach EFL, especially to large classes, check out my website, starteachertraining.com. And again, if you like this video, don't forget to click like and subscribe. Thanks again, and see you soon.